In this video, we're going to take a look at using ProCutter to create an object that we're going to fragment. The reason that we use ProCutter is that it's going to slice an object up, this sphere, and it's going to create fully closed elements out of him. This is really good if you want to do things like crumbling structures, concrete posts, anything that's got realistic solid geometry. Let's go ahead and take a look. We've got a bunch of splines out here. Now each one of these splines actually comes with the default interpolation of 6, and we're going to see why that's a little high. ProCutter is going to add a lot of extra calculation when it uses that. We're going to go ahead and select all those splines and extrude them, make it nice and far. And you can see that we get lots of extra edges in here. What that's going to do is that's going to cause ProCutter to cut really slowly. So what we're going to do is use a little Mac script. It's selected.steps equals 1, and that's going to go ahead and reduce that interpolation. And what we're going to do is we're going to take all these extruded splines that we've got, duplicate them, and we're going to just angle them around, and we're going to look at our projection angle. This is kind of the pattern that's going to be cut through that sphere from that side, while the sphere is going to be cut by these other ones. Go ahead and move him here, check him again from the side. Okay, looks pretty good. Let's take these here, drag them over. And you remember that the way ProCutter works is you select your first cutter object. You say you want to create a ProCutter with that. And then you pick your stock object, the thing you want to cut. And we're going to cut that sphere 01, pick him. You can see that it goes ahead and it removes part of that mesh. What we need to do is set the keep the stock inside the cutter. And that'll give us both the outside and inside portions. Let's just go ahead and take a quick look at what we have right now. We've got just one slice through there. We'll put an edit poly on it and take a look at the elements. So you can see from the back side, on the inside, this element is fully closed. We'll go ahead and just move him out here, and you can see that. And he's left a fully closed remaining mesh as well. This gives a really nice fragmenting effect. That's why we want to take a look at this method. Go ahead and unhide, and then what we're going to do is pick the rest of these cutter objects. We're just going to go ahead and multi-select these lines and say pick. And we're going to go ahead and put you on pause while it calculates this. Okay, so this is finished, and now you can see that we have an object here that is very cut up. We get all different kinds of cuts in there. We look from the kind of the top or that left side, we can see where that pattern was. Anyway, what we want to do now is we want to go ahead and actually cut this or fragment this up. We're going to go ahead and jump into TP, create a rule, and we're going to use a black box we saved before. It's under the test 2. It's called Fragment with Light, and Fragment with Light just gives us a good starting point and creates these two groups for us. We're going to go ahead and cut that, paste them up here. Now there's some things that we need to update. We need to go into the born, the object particle, and pick our source object. This line 07, as he's going to be the source particle group, and he's going to be instance shape, and then we'll go ahead and hide him. Then what we also want to do is come into the fragment rule and adjust some things in fragment. First of all, we don't want to use lights, and then what we want to do is we want to set smooth and distance. We're going to set this to be 180 and 100, and what this will do is this will say, okay, your smoothing angle can be 180 degrees. It can cover everything, and your radius can be 100%. And what this will do is this will kind of force each element to end up being his own fragment. Can't really see it right now, but there's some other issues that we've got because this is a saved black box. We'll go ahead and take a look. We come down into the fragment shape, and because each one of these is a closed element, we don't really want any thickness because that's actually going to create a shelled object. It's like adding a shell modifier to something that's already solid. It's just going to make it a kind of a hollow object with a little thickness. So what we want to do is we want to say exclude closed fragments. And you can see that update changes. Now those elements, because they're already closed, they're just going to stay one solid piece of mesh, just as they were before we fragmented them. But it does create an individual particle per element. Something else, we're going to remove this outside edge and backside material ID assignment because we don't want to override the actual material IDs. Take a look at ProCutter documentation and set your cutters to have a specific material ID, and take a look at ProCutter as far as how to apply that material ID to the inside of those cuts. And last but not least, we're going to change our remaining shape from solid to hollow, and that way it's not going to create a bunch of extra funky looking stuff. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're actually going to animate our threshold value. We're just going to come out here, we'll start at frame 20, and we'll set a key there for at threshold value of 1. Let's go up to 100 and say 0. You can see that automatically fragments there. And so what happens is this object begins and he breaks apart, and what you see there is the completed elements breaking away. Let's take a look at what happens if we did have, because we want to see, instead of exclude closed fragments, let's turn that on. And then you can see it gets this extra edge in there. You can kind of see that thickness. It's creating a hollowed out element, which may or may not be desired. In our case, we want to exclude closed frags so that it only uses the elements as we had cut them. Make this a little more interesting really easily. We'll just go ahead and throw some spin on them. And drop that there. Maybe spin of 1, 90% variation. And so we'll see as these pieces come flying out, they're going to have quite a bit of spin to them. It's probably a little fast. So this method's really good for things like, I think we said, buildings or big concrete pillars or any big solid heavy object that you need to artistically cut to control the fragmenting. Okay, we'll go ahead and save this as fragment 5 end, and we're going to go ahead and save this as frag elements, and we're going to save that as a black box here in the test 2 category, and exist to create. Okay.